Welcome to episode 23 of Discount Storytime. This week's story is Tom and Zeke, and our sponsor for today is Alarm Buddy. Enjoy!
Having trouble getting out of bed? Tired of being the last one to breakfast? The last one to the office? Always the last in the morning? Well, suffer no more. The problem isn't you. No. That idea is pure poppycock, if not downright ballyhoo. The problem is your alarm. What happens if you hit the snooze button? Nothing. There are no immediate consequences. That lack of immediate and severe consequences make modern bedside alarms inadequate for today's busy lifestyle. Our team of Alarm Buddy scientists have discovered a revolutionary method to get the old blood pumping in the morning. It relies on our most primal, time to wake up and get moving emotion. Abject terror. And that is the magic of Alarm Buddy. How does Alarm Buddy work? Your Alarm Buddy remains safely caged but within striking distance. Oh yes, Alarm Buddy can see you, and it is planning. Once your morning alarm goes off, our special patented mattress sensors will know if you are up and safely out of bed. As long as you are out of bed on time, Alarm Buddy's cage remains safely closed. You might ask, what happens if I stay in bed? What if Alarm Buddy gets free? Just don't oversleep. You might ask, what about my family? Are they safe? Don't oversleep. Welcome to a new life with Alarm Buddy. Call within the next 48 hours and qualify for a free trial. That's Alarm Buddy. Call now.
Tom and Zeke. Tom, a young man with a disheveled suit, tie, and face, careened into his disheveled apartment, slammed the door, and threw his keys into a little metal bucket on the coffee table. Tom paced back and forth angrily, then flopped down on his preferred spot on the sofa with a Tom butt-shaped divot. A few minutes of vigorous pouting passed, and Tom had every right to be pissed, he thought. His boss humiliated him in front of his coworkers. Again! Tom rose on the third try from his sofa divot and stomped to the kitchen for a beer. He still heard his stupid boss. "Tom, you're late for work again. If you like sleeping so much, don't bother coming in tomorrow." Tom took a swig of craft beer, the only beer with lumps of authentic cheese and macaroni. He thought of his boss's stupid pompadour, faux corduroy fur suit, and Tom threw his frozen dinner in the oven. The muffled voice of Tom's neighbor, Mrs. Greensley, emitted through the thin apartment wall.
"Quiet down, Tom. If you don't want your boss riding your arse, get up on time."
"Mind your own business, hag." Tom took a deep breath, and musty air of rainy days and old buildings snaked into his lungs. While waiting for his frozen dinner to cook, Tom passed the time with more angry pacing. Back and forth he went. Occasionally he kicked at the dirty socks and empty snack boxes that littered the floor, showing nobody in particular that he was still mad at his boss. Then, worn out from rage pacing, he swigged his beer and turned on the radio, shocking his fingers in the process. The Dewdrop Sisters were finishing their new song, "Don't Wake Me From This Dream." Tom laughed at the cruel irony. Tom wasn't lazy, But he was such a deep sleeper, no amount of noise in the morning seemed to faze him. This had been a problem in junior high school, and business school. He told his doctor, and his doctor suggested that he try switching cigarette brands. Tom reminded him that he didn't smoke, but his doctor pointed to an ad showing a smiling doctor smoking brand cigarettes. 8 out of 9 8 out of 9 doctors prefer brand by brand, the old physician said before coughing violently. Tom was always late to morning meetings, classes, and events. He just couldn't learn to wake up on time. If only he had someone to make sure he woke up on time. The song on the radio finished, and a smooth, deep voice said, "That was the lovely Dewdrop Sisters, ladies and gentlemen. And now a word from..." Lightning crashed, and the apartment went dark for a moment. But then the radio crackled back to life. "Always late for work?" "Yeah, buddy." "Tired of your boss calling you tardy?" "You goddamn right I am." "Wish you had someone to make sure you wake up on time?" Tom took several steps towards the radio without realizing. "Then Alarm Buddy is the system for you, my friend. With Alarm Buddy's patented apprehension technology, you will learn to wake up on time by triggering specific brain pathways." "That's right, my friend. Alarm Buddy is guaranteed to work for you. What are you waiting for? Here's the number to call today." Tom wrote down the number and ran outside to the building's payphone. The apartment door had barely closed when smoke from a burning dinner drifted out of the oven. When Tom requested Friday morning off for Alarm Buddy installment, his boss shrugged easily and agreed. It was only when Tom walked back to his desk that his boss called, "It's not like you're here on time anyway, Mr. Beauty Sleep." Tom spent Friday morning working through the massive paperwork packet from Alarm Buddy. He was taken back by the amount of forms required, including a standard credit check, next of kin, emergency contacts, and several indemnity waivers. One for legal risk, one for emotional risk, one for societal risk, etc. The physical risk indemnity waiver was over 50 pages long and included blindness, death, decapitation, disembowelment, dismemberment, genital stripping, impalement, poisoning, strangulation, and that's not to mention the more gruesome ones. Tom had to sign an agreement stating that under no conditions whatsoever, Alarm Buddy and its associated property is to leave the apartment. Tom jumped when the Alarm Buddy technician knocked on the door. She strode into the room, kindly bringing a trace of perfume ambling behind her like a leashed pet. Her name was Jerry, and she was alluring and curvy in the right places. Her blonde hair was in a ponytail that stuck out from her black company baseball cap. She wore black denim slacks, work boots, and a knit shirt with the Alarm Buddy logo and name tag. "Well, hello," Tom said, wishing he had brushed his teeth. Jerry stared at him for a minute, then turned to her clipboard.
"You order an Alarm Buddy?"
"Yes, I tend to..." Jerry surveyed the apartment. Her eyebrows raised at the sight of dirty briefs being used as a coffee table coaster.
"How much do you pay your maid?"
she asked. "Oh, I don't have a maid."
"Really?"
Jerry walked to the stacks of forms on the kitchen table. She reviewed the forms and asked Tom to sign off on the notice of delivery. "You haven't delivered it yet."
"No, this is the notice of delivery. After you've agreed to everything, we deliver it."
"So, maybe you can come over tonight and we can call it a service call, in that you can service me. I may need servicing in the bedroom. Servicing."
"No."
"I'm actually talking about sex. No, I deliver Alarm Buddy, and that's all. Be back in a minute. Jerry walked out. Her perfume trailed with her. About 15 minutes later, Jerry returned with a square crate on rollers, measuring about 4 feet high and 2 feet across. Tom sat on his bed and watched Jerry work. She took a crowbar and removed the crate piece by piece, revealing a cage underneath. Tom craned his neck forward to make sure he was seeing things right. Inside the cage was a small beer keg. How was that going to help him wake up every morning? Jerry worked on the cage pieces, and suddenly it expanded into a 4-foot square. Inside the cage was also a folded lawn chair and a roll of blankets. "Wake up, sweetie," Jerry cooed softly. "You can wake me up like that on any day," Tom said. Ignoring him, Jerry set up a box with what looked to be a small radar panel, several buttons, and a combination dial. A few minutes later, she plugged the unit into the wall socket, and it whirred to life. The radar panel spinned back and forth at Tom's bed. Jerry walked Tom through the setup, where he selected a wake-up time using the dials on the top. When his alarm went off, he had 15 seconds to get out of bed. Then the radar would check to make sure the bed was empty. Next, he had to enter the combination on the top of the cage before the countdown timer finished. "That's it? That's supposed to wake me up?" "Yep, do that and your mornings will be easy," Jerry said while cleaning up the crate material and stacking it on the rollers. "What if I don't?" Tom asked, and Jerry laughed. Only it wasn't Jerry. It came from the cage under a pile of blankets that began shaking to life. "Then my boyfriend Zeke gets to work." Jerry smiled and waved into the cage. From under the blanket, a small, thin hand with sharp claws stuck out and gave a thumbs up. "What the f*** is that?" From under the blankets rose Zeke. It was almost 3 feet tall and lean. It stood on cloven hooves and wore black denim slacks and an Alarm Buddy company knit shirt with a name badge. It had deep purple skin except for a pale white face, complete with black lips, yellow slits for eyes, and tufts of moldering hair clumps sprouting from its scalp. Tom shrieked, darted across the room, and hopped onto his bed. "What the hell is that thing?" "Don't oversleep and it's no problem," said Jerry, moving the roller out of the room. "You don't have to feed or water him. He brews his own beer and is very good at cleaning up." Zeke unfolded his lawn chair and turned his attention to preparing the small keg. "Wait, you can't leave that thing here!" Tom chased after Jerry. "That's the deal. You signed the contract, and I'm not allowed to remove any Alarm Buddy staff or property from your premises without authorization." But if I oversleep?" "Don't oversleep."
"But what does?"
"Don't oversleep."
Jerry then lowered her voice and whispered to Tom,
"And be nice to him. His girlfriend just broke up with him, and he's feeling vulnerable."
She called into the apartment past Tom.
"See ya, cutie."
Jerry shut the apartment door, and Tom hurriedly opened it back up, but she was gone. "Oh, hell no," Tom thought, and went out to the payphone. He tried calling Alarm Buddy several times, but there was no answer. When Tom had run out of change, he returned to his apartment, hoping the whole thing had been a bad dream or hallucination. Upon returning, Tom didn't need to look into his bedroom to confirm this was real. His nose was thwacked by the wet, moldy smell of the creature and the sound of it slurping beer. Tom sat at the kitchen table and looked over his copy of the forms he had signed. Nowhere did it mention a return or cancellation policy. How had he overlooked that before? He was stuck with this thing, at least for now. Tom was on a beautiful beach with a bikini-clad Jerry. The sea air was fresh and invigorating. She took his hand in hers, and they walked down the beach together.
Oh, darling, remember the day we met and I fell for you because you are so manly.
Of course, Tom said.
So many men can gain muscles by lifting weights and exercising. Oh, how dull. It takes a special kind of hunk to be so doughy.
Jerry looked at him, and her breath caught when his tummy jiggled.
Oh, my.
And it's all yours, babe, for you and any of your hot friends. Jerry stopped and turned towards him, the sea to her back. She smiled and put her palms against his chest.
And our first wonderful night together when you told me.
She moved her head closer to his and lowered her voice.
When you told me, just don't oversleep.
Behind her, the sea began bubbling.
Don't oversleep,
she said while kissing his neck. Out from the bubbling waves rose a 10-foot tall sea monster with deep purple skin, except for a pale white face, complete with black lips, yellow slit eyes, and tufts of moldering hair clumps sprouting from its scalp. Oh, and it had a chainsaw, a gigantic chainsaw. The chainsaw revved higher as the monster ran onto the beach and chased them. Jerry screamed,
"Don't oversleep!"
Tom pushed Jerry towards the monster as a shield. Then he ran from the shoreline, but he could hear the chainsaw closing in. Why didn't it go for Jerry first? Tom fell, blinked, took a look around, and saw the legs of his coffee table. It took him a couple of seconds to orient himself. A loud electronic voice was counting down from 10 in his bedroom. Tom rushed to the cage, and just out of reach from the creature clawing the cage bars, he turned the combination dial on the control pad. The code didn't work. 4, 3. The creature snarled and screeched. Tom panicked, tried the combination again. This time it worked. 2. Countdown stopped. Good morning, said an electronic voice. The creature known as Zeke glared at him, then turned back to his lawn chair and beer. "I'm sleeping in on weekends, you little prick," Tom said, trying to regain his breath and hide his shaking hands. Zeke gave him a sinister smile, and his eyes changed from yellow to orange as if to say, "Please try." Over the next 3 days, Tom slept on the couch and avoided his bedroom as much as possible. Each time he heard the cage alarm, he began waking a little bit faster and his head was a little bit clearer, but the hideous creature was still in his bedroom. Additionally, when the designers of Tom's apartment complex decided where to put the bathroom door for one-bedroom apartments, one architect, Imani, insisted they go to the master bedroom to save building space. The other architects had squabbled at this, as it would mean company, such as a large assortment of friends, would have to travel past the bedroom to use the bathroom. Unperturbed, she reminded them that these are plans for renters of one-bedroom apartments, and the possibility of a large assortment of friends was being rather charitable at best. Score 1 for Imani, and score 0 for Tom, who now had to pass by the cage and the monstrosity in order to use his bathroom. Zeke watched this calmly while he sat on the lawn chair and drank beer from a red plastic cup. By the end of the week, Tom had not been late to work once, and his boss had noticed, or at least wasn't jumping down Tom's throat about it. Also, it was Friday, and Tom had plans to go out with his good friend Franz. Franz was getting married soon and asked Tom to be a groomsman. Franz had also requested no stag-style bachelor parties. Instead, he wanted to go out and have a few drinks with his buddies. As he left Friday evening, he snarled to Zeke, Okay, I'm going out with my friends, you stupid freak. Don't wait up. Zeke stared at him and pointed to his name badge. Yeah, I know you have a name, but to me you're just some ugly freak. No wonder your girlfriend dumped you. With that, Zeke's face fell, which made Tom laugh as he headed out the door. Loser. On Saturday morning, technically almost Saturday afternoon, Tom awoke to a blurry world. He was again sleeping on the couch, but he couldn't remember how he got there, or why his couch was different. The lack of a divot threw him off. He looked around carefully, as not only was his head pounding, but his hair ached. What? He asked in a thick tongue. This was not his apartment, and someone was saying something to him, but each syllable felt like a drum cymbal in his head. After a sluggish delay, the puzzle pieces were clicking into place. Franz was talking to him. I said, get up. My parents are coming to town and I've got to clean. Go sleep in your own bed unless you want to help clean. Franz was plugging in a vacuum cleaner as Tom gingerly sat up. What happened? We went out and you got hammered. I made you some hangover juice. Now scat. Franz turned on the vacuum cleaner. The excruciating sound drove painful spikes from the base of Tom's skull to every part of his body. Even his fingernails hurt. Okay, fine, I'm going. Just turn off that noise for a minute, please. Tom slurped down the hangover juice, an apparent blend of tomato juice and pond muck, and began the long walk back home. Tom hoped sunlight, fresh air, and a little exercise would help his condition. If anything, he now felt worse. The sun was too bright, the people too loud, the walk too long, and the hot afternoon breeze hurt his skin, his hair, even his eyelashes. When Tom finished the trudge back to his apartment hallway, he heard a beeping sound coming from inside. His hungover mind tried to make sense of it, decided it had enough for one day, and gave up. Tom carefully and quietly entered his apartment, closed the door behind him, and set his keys into the little metal bucket on the coffee table. A wave of heat hit him as the air conditioner had been turned off. Tom went to his bedroom, and now, almost as muscle memory, turned the combination on the top of the cage to silence the alarm. He then fell into his bed, but his bedroom was hot and the sun was bright. Tom tried looking around the room, but his head was still spinning, and this made him more nauseous. Then he saw the open cage door. He sat up in bed. Hello? Tom's hangover suddenly became the least of his problems. There was silence. Maybe it left. Tom was hopefully relieved by the thought, then realized he had contracted to never let this thing escape. Plus, the windows weren't open, and there was no way it could get out the front door. The lock was a double-sided deadbolt, and he had the only key. There would be no way out. Actually, no way out didn't sound much better. Hello? Still nothing. Well, sitting in bed wasn't going to do him any good. What does he do now? Does the thing just go back into its cage? All he was told was, don't oversleep. Well, no kidding. The cage was empty except for the lawn chair and keg of beer. The beer. That was it. That little freak drank beer all the time. If Tom could get the monster to think he's drinking all the beer, it would run back to the cage and Tom could shut the door. Plus, he could use a hair of the dog to steady his own nerves. Tom sat down at the door of the cage, grabbed a red plastic cup, and poured himself a beer. This beer sure looks good. I guess I'll have to drink it all by myself and not share any with... Tom couldn't think of its name, but that didn't matter. He took a swig of beer, expecting the worst. To his surprise, the beer was cold and refreshing. Tom instantly felt a little bit better. Well, if that didn't work, maybe I need to try again. So Tom drank another cup. Not bad. How do you keep it so cold? And how do you... Tom followed the clear plastic tube running from the keg along the bottom of the cage and up the lawn chair. The tube went through the seat and connected to a catheter covered in a film of gray slime. Ugh. Tom dropped the cup, spilling creature beer all over himself as he crab-crawled away from the cage. "You're disgusting!" He looked at the cage in horror when a gravelly cackle came from behind him. Tom spun around and stood to find the creature at the bathroom doorway. It was holding a cup of creature beer in one hand and pointing to his name tag Zeke with the other. Zeke flipped off Tom and slowly poured the beer onto the carpet. Tom had enough and lunged at Zeke, who jumped into the bathroom. Tom chased him into the bathroom, but he instantly slipped on the floor and landed square on his back. His entire backside was now covered in shaving cream, which covered the bathroom linoleum. The fall knocked the wind out of Tom, and Zeke took that opportunity to hop on Tom's chest and then out the bathroom, taking only a moment to squat down and crop dust the air Tom was trying to recover. "So what if I oversleep on a Saturday? Haven't you heard of Saturdays?" Tom screamed and kicked, which returned his hangover in full force. Tom could hear bustling coming from the kitchen area and tried to stand, but each time he slipped on shaving cream and fell back down. Giving up, he soldier-crawled his way into the bedroom and used his sheets to wipe off. "You're going back right now, you little creep. I'm going to call the payphone, and they're going to take you away." Tom made a beeline for the front door and tried opening it, realizing that it was still locked. Not to be taken by surprise, he kept his eyes on his surroundings while reaching into the metal bucket for the keys. It was wet. "Yo!" Tom screamed and pulled his hand out, along with a mouse trap stuck to his fingers. Worse yet, the bucket had been partially filled with hot sauce, which seeped into the wound. Tom mumbled while working the mousetrap off his hand. He had the metal bar just about free when a loud banging sound came from behind him. Surprised, he accidentally let the spring bar slip and it slapped back down on his fingers. "Yow! Oh, you're dead. You are so dead." Tom growled in rage and flung the mousetrap off his now burning and stinging hand. "I'm cooking you for dinner." Tom was about to lunge for Zeke, but held back at the last second. "Not this time. I'm not running into another one of your stupid traps. I'm going to stand here and think of a plan, and then you're going to pay. Trust me, I will make you pay. Just wait." Zeke looked at him, tilted his head, and waited patiently. I've just got to cool off. You made it so damn hot in here." Tom carefully walked to the center of the living room, reached up, and turned the ceiling fan on high. As the fan blade started to move, something began plinking down. Zeke pulled his baseball cap down to cover his eyes as broken glass rained down from the tops of the fan blades. "Are you kidding me?" Tom called out in near desperation. "You're a real jerk, you know that?" Zeke snickered and gave an up-yours salute. "Great. How does this end? What are you going to do next? Burn my apartment down?" Zeke looked at Tom and tilted his head. "Look, I know you're just doing your job. It's not your fault I overslept, and I signed up for this, right?" Zeke nodded his head. "Okay, and I'm sorry your girlfriend dumped you. I shouldn't have said what I said. I'm really sorry." Zeke looked down at the ground and put his clawed hands in his pockets. The muffled voice of Mrs. Greensley came through the apartment wall.
"It's about time you apologized for that. Zeke is in a vulnerable place, you know. He blames himself for everything that went wrong with Susan, and that's not fair to him. It takes two to make a relationship work. Also,
Shut up, you old hag! Tom turned to Zeke. I gotta say, you are really good. I mean, work has been going well, and I feel better. Thank you. Zeke looked away. No, really. Thanks. I'm better now because of you. I owe you one. Zeke smiled at Tom. I guess I got some cleaning up to do, Tom said, and he and Zeke laughed. Can you come help get me past this broken glass, Zeke? At the sound of his name being used, Zeke smiled wide and walked easily over to Tom. As soon as Zeke came close, Tom held out his hand to shake, and Zeke took his hand. Tom quickly pulled Zeke, and he was instantly whipped off the ground and squeezed into a football hold. Got you, sucker! Tom took his other arm and flipped over the coffee table, making a path to the bedroom and cage. Zeke was clever, but not physically strong, and was easily thrown back into the cage. You don't like that, huh? You don't like your little cage and your little disgusting butt beer? Well, tough fuck. Because of you, I have to clean up all this mess, and I hate cleaning. And now this place is a disaster because of you. Are you going to help clean? Then Tom remembered something Jerry said about Zeke.
very good at cleaning up.
Wait, you like to clean, don't you? Zeke was upset, and he poured himself a beer. No, don't drink that. Here, I got something for you. Tom found some shoes and walked to the refrigerator. He thought maybe he could use this situation. Tom hated cleaning with a passion, and as gross as Zeke was, he did keep his cage spotless. Tom grabbed 2 craft beers and returned to the bedroom. He passed one to Zeke and sat on the bed. How's your beer? Zeke took a swig, surprised at first when the cheese globs popped out, burped, and smiled wide. He raised his beer in a toast. Tom laughed in spite of himself. Oh, I have a deal for you. Six months later. Zeke, his black denim slacks and knit shirt now covered with an apron, set out breakfast on the kitchen table. Looking at the apartment now, you wouldn't recognize it. The socks and dirty underwear had been relegated to the laundry hamper, the carpet was vacuumed, and the kitchen organized. Tom rushed out of the bedroom and sat at the kitchen table in a huff. His hair was in a pompadour, and he wore a faux corduroy fur suit. There's a little bit of dust on the tub caulking. Dust! If I see any more dust anywhere, you're going in the cage. Do you understand? Zeke's eyes grew big, and he sadly nodded agreement. Don't forget it. And this bacon isn't crispy. I said crispy bacon. How hard is that? If I get any more chewy bacon, you're going in the cage. Can your thick head understand that? Again, Zeke's eyes grew big, and he sadly nodded agreement. Tom finished eating. I'm leaving. Get my coffee. Geez, where'd I put my wallet? Tom stormed back into his bedroom. Zeke, now with a lump in his throat, poured coffee from the carafe into Tom's travel mug. He then mustered the throat lump into a nice thick ball and spit it into the coffee, stirring it carefully before putting the lid on. Tom returned to the kitchen, grabbed the mug, and took a sip while staring at Zeke. Good coffee, though. At least you can do one thing right. Tom hurried out the door without saying another word. Zeke flipped him off as the door closed. He then rapped his knuckles twice on the wall, and Mrs. Greensley asked,
Is the ass gone?
Zeke rapped once.
Good. Biscuits are almost done.
Zeke poured 2 cups of coffee, set them on the coffee table, and turned on the radio. In a minute, Mrs. Greensley would come over and they would have biscuits and coffee and listen to the Dewdrop Sisters music hour on the radio. Zeke had never liked living in the cage, but that was the only work he could find. Now, he still draws a paycheck from Alarm Buddy, and Tom had gotten several job promotions and worked day and night 7 days a week, so Zeke essentially had the apartment to himself. Not a bad deal, Zeke thought as he sipped his coffee. Not a bad deal at all. The end. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this story. And if you're enjoying these stories, I'm going to ask you a favor. You don't have to, but if you would, please text one person right now and say, hey, I've got a podcast recommendation. And give it a listen. Let me know what you think. Now, of course, don't text if you're driving or if you're riding a unicycle on a tightrope between two skyscrapers. But most of all, again, thank you so much for listening. And until next week, play nice with others, be super duper kind to yourself, and remember to laugh. Bye.